welcome to this very special NDTV session from the Bengaluru think tank Synergia Foundation's 9th conclave here. A special session where we're going to try and address and understand what next in West Asia, diplomatically, militarily, politically, and economically. And joining me in this special conversation, and dare I say, both sides of the divide in West Asia, I have with me Doron Shalom Avital, a former head of the Israeli Special Forces, the Sayeret Matkal, as well as someone who is a former member of the Israeli Knesset. I have with me Mr. Ahmed Al-Maimouni, the director of the Rasana Institute in Riyadh, who's down here for this conclave, and also with me Major General Ajay Shah of the Synergia Foundation. Sir, Doron, if I can start with you, sir.
Sure.
The humanitarian cost has been enormous. The geopolitical fallout is concerning for around the world. What next from the Israeli point of view? Are we looking at an extended military occupation of Gaza? What do we expect next?
Okay, I will start by saying that, of course, this was a terrible attack on our civilians, and the campaign that Israel issued had two objectives. One, to eliminate Hamas as the ruling government power in Gaza, and the second, of course, to bring our hostages back. But I think the official policy of Israel, as was stated by Benjamin Netanyahu, is by no way to reoccupy Gaza. What would be the state of Gaza? This is an open question. We'll have to deal it with our allies. And when I'm talking allies, it's not like only US and Europe, it's also Egypt and Jordan and the PA, Palestinian Authority, with whom we have this relationship. We have to work it out, but the conflict has to end. And we have to make sure it doesn't escalate to a regional conflict. Because we have Hezbollah, we have Shia militia in Syria, we have the Houthis shooting missiles from time to time. So this is the purpose, the two objectives, and not to escalate it to a regional conflict. This is right now the purpose.
Okay, and how do you see it playing out? What is the reaction that one is sensing from the Arab world, sir?
Well, we are sad for losses of life on both sides, and my personal level, indeed, what I have seen in the region is that this is the result of doesn't resolve the conflict because blood produce blood, and this is the thing that we are expecting to go further. The Israeli government did not respond to the peace initiatives that being proposed decades ago, 2 decades ago. We come up with peace initiative from started as Saudi initiative to solve the issue between Israel and Palestine according to international resolutions. But the fanatic in the Israeli government did not even deal with it. And this brings us to this moment where the people of Hamas penetrate to Israel and killed and hold hostages, and the response of the Israeli, which is not proportional and not taking precaution not to harm women's, children's, elder civilians in installation hospitals. So it's something that is sad we are seeing, and we think that we are seeing this situation is complicating the whole process of reaching. And actually before the 7th of October, we have hope that we can see some form of resolution between the two parties and the normalization of the Israeli with the Arab world. But this situation brings us to the beginning, brings us to the early years of the conflicts. We was about to forget the massacres happens over the years in 48, in 76, others, so we try to overcome all of this. This is bring us to this point. I think the Israeli entrenched in Gaza without strategy, without what's next. They didn't ask the same question, what is next in this conflict? And we can imagine what will happen because those victims, their relatives, will become another Hamas. They will keep trying to revenge, and the government of Gaza Strip will be not that easy to replace those people of Hamas with another either Palestinian government or any other Arab governments, or Israeli will not tolerate to secure the Gaza Strip. We are in really dilemma that no one would like to clean the mess that the Israeli do in Gaza. These days, the problem is who will start the first step. They are negotiating about releasing the hostages, but the question is who will start the first step.
Who will start the first step? That's a very important question that you raised there. Quickly, before I get to Major General Doron, is there a recognition of this? And there has to be some kind of a roadmap for the future back in Israel?
I think there must be a roadmap, but I want to mention the Biden initiative that involved Saudi Arabia just before those events. And we have to take the Hamas violent attack in this conflict. This was an attempt to derail exactly this. And Israel was part of the Biden initiative. It was a follow-up on the Abraham Accord. I think Israel, after this attack, could not have not gotten into Gaza, eliminate Hamas, and I think it's in the interest of any peace process, in the interest of the Egyptian government, but of course it's a hidden interest, in the interest of the Jordanian government, and also the PA, who is the enemy of Hamas. I want to remind the audience what Hamas did to the PLO politician when they won the election. They actually killed them. So we have to be very pragmatical about this conflict, but I would just mention one word in continuation with what was said. In previous conflict, bloody conflict had generated in the end good outcomes. I want to mention the Yom Kippur War, after which we had the peace with Egypt, which is the major breakthrough. And I want also even the Lebanon war with the PLO, the 82 war, which this is my generation, ended with the Oslo Accord 10 years later. So of course this is a terrible bloodshed. Of course we sorry for the tragedy. I don't see any other option any army, any nation could have had after attack in 1400 of its civilians and got killed, including youth in a party. So we had to do it. We had to eliminate Hamas. It's in the benefit of the peace process in the end. And I hope this would generate again the Biden initiative and the Saudi initiative back to track.
Is there a hope of that?
Well, without hope we cannot live. We still have hope. We still would like to save lives in the Palestinian area. And last week there was a big conference, Islamic conference in Riyadh, who was the leaders of 57 countries in the Islamic world gathered in Riyadh to see how this issue can go, how can they deal with it. The only question was, we will not ask any more question rather than stopping the war, stopping the destruction of those civilians, installations, hospitals. It's never been happened in history, and we ask the question that while the Israelis still not going to forget the Holocaust, they are causing a Holocaust in Gaza. They are debriefing those people. Let me finish. Just debriefing those people for 10 years or more than that. From they are just in a closed area, and what we are expecting from those people to do is just like act like this. Without recognizing their rights, Israel will not stay in a peaceful situation to deal with their.
Okay. No, so my question is, what next? How do we move forward? And let me just get a context to it from India as well, and not just from an Indian context, from a global standpoint. We were already witnessing a war in the Ukraine. Now you've seen this conflict erupt out here. What do we take as the geopolitical fallout? I mean, a lot of steps forward, that were taken in the last maybe couple of decades seem to have been reversed. And is this irreversible? I mean, what's happened now? I'm talking in the near future.
Veera, we in Synergia have been tracking the Middle East situation for the last few years. It's been one of our focus areas because we understand and appreciate the importance of this region to India as a growing power. We tracked the Abraham's Accord, we tracked the I2, U2, India, Israel, US, UK, in which in some quarters it was be called as the Middle East NATO. Then the crowning moment for India came at the conclusion of the G20 in September. The India, Middle East, Europe corridor was announced. We in Synergia, while we were appreciating all these activities, which generated a lot of positivity, there was a nagging feeling in our mind because there were an important stakeholder in this entire jigsaw puzzle was missing, and that was the Palestinian people. Second is that there are many vested lobbies within the Middle East, both within the region and external to the region, who have got certain amount of interest, and they were not happy in the direction this peace process was moving. And I'm sure in most of the countries this realization was there. And we in Synergy and our various platforms, we brought it out that the process has to take into account these threats. And 7th of October, I think most of the world was blindsided and was surprised by what happened because apparently it looked as if the complete dynamics of the peace process, as was being processed under the leadership of the USA and the other European countries, was on the verge of collapse. But I think we should not look at it as the end of the peace process, but as a challenge. And I'm sure both Israel and Saudi Arabia, and for that matter in India, the stakes for our future of our people and our country are too high to be, revert back, regress to this stand which we had taken traditionally, say 20 years back or 30 years back. I think we should get over that. The issue is right now, the issue is that both sides are in a kind of a Mexican standoff, I would say, because whichever side will take the first step, a ceasefire by Israel or release of hostages by the Hamas, it domestically it may look as if they have surrendered their position. But I think uh, a cessation of hostility is required. At the same time, the hostages must be released. We in
So
India never support this kind of action. You cannot put a gun on somebody's head and then force action.
So yeah, it's an important point that you raised there. And given that just before the 7th of October, we were talking of an economic corridor, we are living in a polarized world at the moment. There are several other conflicts that are simmering as well, as I mentioned. What would be the anticipation? What would be the inside thinking in Arab capitals on how to move forward? What is it that you're possibly cautiously looking at the moment as potential indicators in the near future on how this is going to progress?
Well, just first alluded to the idea of the U.S. Mitigation in this conflict. It appears that the U.S. has sided completely with Israel. The Europeans are completely sided with Israel. And unfortunately, they are saying they are democratic countries. They value the life of people. So what we are looking forward is maybe some other nation that might step in as part of mitigation, like India, for instance, or China. They are acceptable for both parties. We, we in the Arab world, I believe in the, I'm not government official, but I think the Arab initiative is still on the table. We can take it as a base to move forward. We have to first to calm this situation, the current situation now, and as my friend here alluded to that, though there are some people benefiting from keeping this conflict alive. those people would like it to keep continue. They will keep spoiling any process. So we have to work and do some sacrifice. The Israelis for a long time they reach a sense that they don't have to give something for nothing, because they are seeing that the Palestinian cannot give them anything. So why we give something? Now we're reaching a point that is this is the price of the civilians they are paying the price here.
So what is that something that can be then?
Now, first of all, I want to reback the allusions to the Holocaust. I think Israel, everybody knows it. I'm showing the audience in the history books. We fought our wars fair and square against an Arab world that didn't want us to exist. And of course, we had our highs and ups. I was serving under Yitzhak Rabin, that was assassinated, and the Oslo Accord was a great optimistic moment. I was serving as a member of parliament in Kadima party of Ariel Sharon, that is the architect of the disengagement from Gaza. Gaza could have been a Singapore if the people of Gaza wanted. And I think two things should be clear. First of all, Hamas, I think, is an illegitimate actor in the conflict. And I think every member of the Palestinian Authority would say the same thing. And the testimony is the conflict between the two. Second, we have to mention Iran. You talked about bipolar. Iran is a player that his involvement in the Middle East, in our case, is not clear to us. Why should they involve? They have the Hezbollah in our northern border, threatening with 150,000 missiles and so on, and aiding financially Hamas. They are not players in the Middle East. And I think you mentioned India was the anchor of this corridor. That was the idea was to connect through Saudi Arabia to Israel, to Europe, and normalize relationship as a second state of the Abraham Accord with Saudi Arabia. Everybody knows that we have good underneath connection with Saudi Arabia. So there was a great potential here, derailed by Hamas, supported financially by Iran. And I say to my Palestinian friends, I must tell you that my mother herself was born in the East Jerusalem and was expelled in 48 to the other side. So I'm a refugee. She was a Palestinian. She had a Palestinian passport, as everybody had back then. I think the Palestinians all should go pragmatic. I'm saying also to us Israelis. I'm a Kadima member. I'm not a great supporter of Bibi. We have to go forward, but we have to be pragmatical about the Middle East and to give up some, I don't want to say it, but some kind of poetics that doesn't leave us nowhere. Politically pragmatic going forward with the Palestinians, surely. But without the involvement in Iran, and I hope peace with Saudi Arabia and strengthening the peace with other Arab countries.
Is domestic political compulsions a roadblock to reaching some kind of pragmatic solution, some kind of move forward?
Well, maybe the idea that we should raise here is the Israeli rhetoric succeed to convince the whole world that they are the only victim of this conflict. We have to just he mentioned that he doesn't like the thing that I said, that Sharon himself was the leader of the massacre in Sabra and Shatila.
This not a fact.
So
it's a Christian massacre.
This
it's a fact.
This
no,
is a fact
historical fact.
That we are trying to bring the history, but we'd like to forget and move forward. The other fact is that the Israelis created Hamas at the first place. You have to know that. They tried to divide the Palestinian. So we would like to stop here and start new resolution. Where can we go? This is the idea of the Arab world, that they would like Israelis not to recognize the idea of resolution, because one of the officials in Israel, they proposed that they could wipe the Gaza with nuclear device, nuclear bomb. This mentality have to stop. The current government, if they change, they might come and new moderate people in Israel who would like to come up with solutions.
We keep it.
No, I don't talk in the name of course, Bibi Netanyahu, because this is not my government. I was a Kadima party member.
I'm sorry, I'm just
of course.
Israelis.
And also, we Israelis have to look forward. But historical facts are important. I was a veteran of the Lebanon War. It was a war between us and the PA. It was, by the way, when I met company commanders of the PA in some European Council many years ago, and we were in the war from the two sides. We had respect to each other, and on this respect, the Oslo Accord were based. And the massacre of the Christian in Sabra and Shatila was a terrible tragedy, but to say that the Israelis did it, and we had this committee and everything to settle it down. So historical facts are important. But having said that, I think what we have to be straight about, Iran should pull its hands from the Middle East, and Hezbollah shouldn't destroy Lebanon. And then maybe we in the Palestinian, and maybe with a new Israeli leadership, we have to understand, the audience must understand that for the Israelis, the terrible setback, the terrible intelligence failure of the 7th of October and the tactical failure is a tragedy that we have to think how to work our way out, and also it would have political consequences that might lead to a better future for the Middle East.
I don't want to go too much into the nitty-gritties of the region, which is extremely contentious, and often history can be an impediment to the future as well in terms of road ahead. But General Shah, in terms of who is going to be that player, as Mr. Ahmed pointed out, there has to be someone to bring the two sides on the table, someone to try and find an end to this, or perhaps rebuild from here. Who do you think is going to occupy that space? Very quickly to you after that.
I would say there are already players who are working there in the scene to act as a bridge between. I think Qatar is doing an excellent job because they have a foothold or footprint in both sides. I wish India could have done something more, because while India has got very good relations with Israel, but our traction with Hamas, I would say, is limited. With PLO, we had a good influence and we had very good relations. But with the political dimensions changing, especially in Gaza, I don't think India enjoys that kind of traction. So it would have to be one of the regional countries to step in. And I would say Turkey, Qatar, and of course Saudi Arabia. They have to
Egypt.
step in. But at the same time, I would say that purely on humanitarian grounds, I understand as a military man that Israel has been bloodied. They are angry. They want their revenge, and they also want to take this opportunity to destroy Hamas as a military force and secure the border with Gaza. But purely on humanitarian grounds, both sides have to step back. A humanitarian pause has to be announced so that talks can take place, because some space has to be created for the talks to take place. Even countries like Qatar need that space to take it ahead. At the same time, Hamas has to make a gesture by releasing some hostages, especially women and children. Then only I think there can be some progress.
How optimistic can we be of a humanitarian pause? Quick last comments from you, Doron.
Well, I think we are not far from reaching the peak of this crisis, because once the Israeli go to the ground, they will experience losses in their. So they will have to recalculate the issues. The people of Palestine also, they see this devastation, so they are somehow accepting some communications. Maybe either countries like India or China or other, or maybe another organization like the United Nations or the Arab Islamic League, who formed a special committee for dealing with this crisis. Maybe they can be in the middle to find some way of ceasing fire, moving forward to
I think the official policy of Israel is ceasefire for hostage release. I hope it can be workable. Egypt and Qatar are players in this context. And looking forward into the future, I think our alliance, US and Europe, are players. Egypt and Jordan are players. I think Palestinian Authority, as weak as it is, but with a new leadership after Mahmoud Abbas, can be a partner. I insist Iran has to pull its hands off the region, but I want to warn all of us that the regional conflict is still looming in the future. So there's one major thing is to de-escalate the conflict, and I'm talking Hezbollah, I'm talking Shia militia in Syria, and I'm talking Houthi, but for sure Hezbollah in Iran. We have to de-escalate the regional conflict, because if the regional conflict escalates, it can go even farther. So I hope all of us would be very careful about it.
It is an extremely scary proposition. It's an extremely sensitive issue. We'll keep this conversation going, but for the moment, that's all we have time for. hopefully there will be resolution and it will not escalate further. Thanks for watching.